All right, guys. So if you all haven't heard the news, um, pretty much tax hikes on everything and tariffs, right? What I mean by tax hikes, apparently about a $5,000 increase for the average household income or a household across the US. And on top of that, at least a 10% tariff, which is once again a tax hike. Um, if you guys don't know, tariffs are not paid by companies that, you know, do business outside of the US itself. They're paid by the companies here in the US that import into the US, and they don't pay it themselves. They're going to pass that on to us as consumers. That's how it works. That's how it's always worked. There is no and ifs or buts about that. And for those of you guys that are in leadership roles, um, hey, this was the canary in the coal mine. This is, it wasn't like we weren't told about this. It wasn't like we weren't aware that something like this was on the verge, on the horizon, on the brink of happening. If you haven't been talking to your teams about this and you've been acting like, oh, everything's going to be just fine and dandy, you need to slap yourself. Your team needs to know that you, as a leader, understand the severity of what's going on in the economics of everything macro wise, right? Of how when people have less spending power, what that means for you in your boutique space, right? It means people are less likely to want to part ways with their cash, with their money. It means that people will have less credit available for them to be able to purchase things with. Uh, so it means, you know, a time of spending less for a lot of consumers. And it means that your people are going to have a tougher time selling than they did before. Okay. Uh, I've heard, everybody doing crazy numbers, right? 2020. Um, and 2021, right? I'll give you guys an idea. In my time when I was selling at that point, uh, I wasn't getting paid commissions. I was actually uh, put just on salary without a commission ability to make anything when I had other peers that were, making boku bucks. But when things got tough, I didn't have anything to worry about because I had my clientele already. I had things coming in. I had repeat customers coming to see me. Uh, so, what are you going to do during this time when things just dropped like this? Tomorrow is going to be interesting for you guys that don't know. I also do a little bit of day trading as well, right? Um, and I'm going to be interested to see exactly how the markets react to this. It's not going to be something that's going to be doom and gloom on day one. I don't think anyway, as a lot of people are talking about right now, is expecting, as soon as market bell, and it's going to happen before the market bell, open market rings at 9:30, Eastern time, 8:30 our time, 7:30 Pacific time, right? It's going to be something that we're going to see in pre-market, whether it's, early morning pre-market, whether it's, 7 a.m. pre-market, 6 a.m. pre-market, right, East time, or whether it's going to be open market time. We'll find out. Uh, but truth be told, there's a lot of companies that are going to be scrambling because they've already been hurting financially now because consumers haven't been spending as much. And it's going to further impact everybody else. Uh, so as a leader, you have to ask yourself, what am I doing to prepare my team? What am I doing to prepare myself for this? Because obviously, less consumerism, less money going around, more work that has to be done. How are we going to help? How are we going to help our teams move forward? Because obviously, it's not only their sales that are going to be impacted, but it's also going to be their livelihood. So, what is your game plan for your people? What are you doing as a leader to tell your people, hey, I know things are looking rough for everybody right now. How are we going to get ahead? This is what I plan on doing to be able to help you guys to ensure that we're making at least where we were before, if not being able to come out ahead. This is how we're going to position ourselves to be better and move forward. It's not going to be easy for a lot of people. All right. Uh, that's kind of where we're at. Um, it is going to be an interesting time uh, for a lot of people that aren't used to having to actually put in a lot of work, um, or for those that have never had to worry about, where your next dollar is going to come from, right? It's going to be interesting. It's going to be one of those where, uh, for you as a leader, you're going to find out what you're really made out of. Is it something that you're just riding the coattails off of, or are you an actual leader? Because right now, it's unfortunately not going to be a time for a lot of leaders that maintain status quos, because there is not going to be a status quo to maintain. When numbers are flatlining and going south, what are you as a leader going to do to help motivate your team to want to get after it? What are you going to do to keep your leadership at bay? So, because obviously they understand the macroeconomics, doesn't mean that things aren't going to change for them, because obviously their goals were set prior to all of this happening. Um, so, what are you all looking at? What are you planning on telling your team, right? When there is no alleviation when it comes to goals, right? Goals aren't being alleviated. Goals are what they are, uh, regardless of the macroeconomics, right? Because the goals for the year were already set. The expenditures for the year were already expected. And now things have now drastically gone up because obviously cost of materials for all you guys that are, doing white spaces or renovations for, locations, either renovations and white spaces are going to push back, right? Because the cost of material is going to go up dramatically, and you're now having to account for that increase because you all know your contractors aren't going to keep you to, what current market value is. All right, we all have been there long enough to know that. Um, so things are going to be interesting. And for all y'all thought that, hey, the American, machine, the American production machine that we are, as far as being a war country, is going to keep us afloat. So if you guys haven't heard as well, it looks like most, if not all, countries across the world are looking at other countries, if not themselves, to start producing their own weaponry. Um, so what does that mean for the US? It means that where we were at before, as far as a country being able to rely on other countries, not just American needs, but other countries also spending their dollars, their defense dollars, on buying American goods to produce more American jobs. That, because of our current administration, is not going to be the case. Um, so like I said, it's going to be very interesting to see how things play out. Obviously, um, somebody knew how much of a jackass move this was going to be and didn't want to do it during market hours because it was going to tank the market. Because you know what? It's what's not going to tank the market during midweek on a fucking Wednesday going into Thursday. Not like it's a holiday weekend like next weekend where they could have waited until Thursday evening to announce something like this. Um, so yeah, it's going to be very, very interesting to see. I told my wife I'm probably going to take the day off from trading tomorrow and just see how things play out because, uh, yeah, I remember the last time the tariff stuff was announced and how much of a shit show it was, and that was only a small handful of countries. Um, and honestly, how much of a dipshit do you have to be able to get three countries with probably the worst history prejudice against each other um, for millennia to actually decide to work together? That it's we're in interesting times to say the least. For you as a leader, it means that you need to be that beacon of light for your team. You need to be looking ahead. Um, and if you're trying to look out for yourself, there will be no room for you to maintain course. Because once again, you can only do so much before your role as a leader is going to be cut because production's not there. You're not making goal. Um, Even with accounting for traffic being down, even for accounted for if your company does adjust the goals. Um, because in the wireless industry, It's not whether your company adjusts the goals or not. It's whether the carrier is going to adjust your goals or not. And they don't care about your goals because they have to make good to their shareholders. Uh, so they're going to keep things pretty tight, pretty moving forward. So as a leader, what are you going to do? These are trying times for being a leader in any facet. Doesn't matter what sector you're in. If you're in services, if you're in retail, uh, if you're in professional, it doesn't matter. Right now, it's going to be trying times for a lot of different people. And the question becomes, what do I do as an individual to be able to help my team? Because it's not just what's going to be affected at the households, but also what's going to be affected at the workhouse, at work, because all that's going to intertwine from consumers not spending to you and your people having less coming in that needs to be made up, right? Um, Nothing happens overnight. It's not like they can just bring back all factory production back to the US, and it's not like they would in the any place, right? Just because the cost of doing business in the US obviously is so prohibitive for a reason. Um, and there's a reason that all these companies decided to go and outsource a lot of these positions, a lot of these type of industries. Um, so yeah, so we will see what happens come tomorrow morning. Uh, and then obviously what happens tomorrow morning is going to bleed into Friday. If you guys aren't familiar, Friday is typically the day that a lot of people will typically pull out instead of waiting for the weekend. And whatever occurred during the week, whatever news typically gets amplified, right? So for something like this to drop Wednesday after hours, uh, see how it bleeds into Thursday, and see how it bleeds into Friday, unless somehow, some way, because it's happened every single time that he's announced tariffs, he backs down on his tariffs, or Congress gets the House and Congress get their fucking head out of their ass and, remove the power of tariffs from the executive, uh, bringing back some form of checks and balances. Uh, we will see. We'll see what happens. As a leader yourself, you're gonna have to take a look in the mirror and see exactly, if you have not considered and have not done any team meetings, um, right now is the time to go out and do a team meeting. Schedule whether it's a call, whether it's, you have a small enough or close enough district where you can just schedule something within a day or two to have everybody meets, before or after, work hours. Obviously on the clock, don't be that dipshit and be real with your team. We're uncertain right now. Obviously things still have to go get pushed through, but he's very adamant about wanting to do this, and we'll see what happens. We'll see how things go. Uh, it will be a very unique period. I'm hoping I'm completely wrong and everything's, said like, hey, you know what? We are going to postpone these tariffs. We're going to push back these tariffs to a future date, right? But the damage has already been done. The damage has already been done. You can only cry wolf so many times before people stop believing you and stop taking you at your word. Uh, And obviously, if you'll never been an actual follower of business, if you guys have never read actual business books, business material, uh, you would understand how much of a complete novice our president is when it comes to doing business because he is not a businessman, he is a litigator. He has made his money through litigation by not paying people and threatening to sue them and suing them so he doesn't have to pay them. Um, his father was a business person. His father was a successful business owner. Uh, but that's kind of where we're at. So we have somebody whose word can't be taken. And if you do business, you guys understand a lot of business is done on the premise of the word that we give. As a leader, as a seller, The times I've had to overcome that because my client, my customer has been taken advantage of somewhere else. And I have to be the one to want to help and to help them through to understand that, hey, we're going to stick to our word. This is what we're going to do. We also have, a contract that shows, and this is what we're going to focus on. This is what we're going to get accomplished for you, right? That means a lot. You as a leader have almost an unspoken contract, an unwritten contract, right? The employees have a contract with the company for work, a type of contract, right? For work. You as their leader have an unwritten rule, unwritten contract, unspoken contract that you will guide them. And this is one of those times where your teams, I implore you, I kid you not, this is one of those times where your teams need a leader to stand up for them and be that beacon of light that shows them that there is ways forward. I remember in 2007, 2008, right before the market crash happened, um, me and my team got pulled in. I was selling AT&T cell phones at the time, and our leader pulled us in. I fucking hated the dude. He and I did not get along. That was a different story, right? But I will admire this aspect of him. Pulled us in and pretty much laid it out, right? Macroeconomics. Hey, it looks like it's gonna get tough and it's gonna get tougher. Um, and obviously the normal spiel. People aren't going to be spending as much. We're not going to have as many customers, many opportunities walking through the door. So everything that you do get is going to get very important. You take your time to be able to assist and find solutions. Because oftentimes we might be able to help lower the bill and it'll still be a win for you and a win for them. So you're gonna have to take your time and you're gonna have to dig for more, gold nuggets, dig harder than you had to dig before. And it's probably gonna take 6 to 9 months before we see things. Okay. Before we see any signs of improvement. So it's gonna be it's gonna be tough for a while. Um, and that also means that many of us may, some of us may not be hitting goal. Um, so we're gonna do everything we can to get you guys up and running to making sure that you guys are there, assisted, have the support that you guys need, and try to get everybody to hit goal because I don't want to lose anybody. Because the moment in a downturn period, when you lose staff, the chances of you regaining staff is almost zilch because your company is going to go into some form of a hiring freeze unless they absolutely, positively need to bring people on board. All right. Uh, and whether you have people on your team that you would prefer not to have, right now it's not the time to want to be losing people. So you as a leader need to step up your game to get your people up and running, to make sure everybody is up to par. And I will tell you this, if you can get your teams up and running during a downturn period, when things start to look up, they will be so much better. And I come to you from experience on this because I have been in a position where nationwide, not just my company, but the industry was seeing less foot traffic year over year, not by a small margin, by, upwards of 20% less foot traffic coming into the stores. Um, my sales, even with foot traffic being that low, was still above year over year averages. I think my worst month, I was 10% up year over year with about 20% less foot traffic coming through the door. It's doable. It is possible. I will tell you what I've always told my teams, what I tell everybody. Hard, difficult is just another form of saying it is easy. It requires work. It is easy to do, but it will require work to get done. So don't let a difficult time bring you down. Don't let a hard time bring down your people. There is going to be a process to move forward. You will be able to do good by your team. You will have to go back to basics and you're going to have to work harder at the basics to be able to get everybody back up to par. Remember, it is easy. It will require work. The question for you as a leader is, are you willing to do the work for your team so that they can succeed when times are uncertain. So I will leave you all there. Uh, I still have a lot to unpack with the news. I'm still trying to catch everything up. And luckily, I am not, you know, out in the market right now, except for maybe a very, very small position. Uh, but it's going to be time for everybody to reflect. Take this time, jot down some information. If you guys don't have a journal, I highly recommend, right, getting at least some kind of notepad, writing down and journaling your thoughts, your feelings. Um, don't let it boil in, right? If you don't have anybody to talk to, write it out first, and then it'll comes easy because it's out. You've now put it out in the world in a sense. Okay. Uh, and it's time to move forward. I am going to be doing, these podcasts going forward. I am planning on taking some time off because my dad's anniversary of him passing away is coming up in a couple of weeks. Uh, so I don't know if I'll be, on during that week. But for sure, prior to that and after I come back, I'll still be coming back up, you know, daily, like we've been doing right now, Monday to Friday. And depending on how things go, I may actually do some Saturday and Sundays as well. Because I get what it's like to need support and not have your organization be able to give you the support or have the ability to support you as a leader with the right training and development that you need because they're not in the field. They're not seeing everything that you're seeing. And they think that they're giving what needs to be given and they're giving that assistance um, and the training and development and support that you'll need as a leader. But because the feedback isn't moving up the chain, they're stunted. And when they do realize what was going on, obviously shit hits the fan at that point at the executive level. Um, but that's not for you to worry about at this moment. Take it day at a time. Let me know what you guys think, right? Shoot me a DM, leave a comment. As always, hit that like and subscribe button, and let's stay connected. So, guys, have a great night, and I'll catch you on the next one.